Hello and welcome to Transforming Tomorrow, the podcast from the Pentland Centre here in Lancaster University Management School. I'm Paul Turner.
And I'm Professor Jan Babington.
Now, Jan, last time we were talking to Professor Alona Armstrong from the Lancaster Environment Centre and Energy Lancaster about all things solar parks, but we didn't actually talk to her about who the Lancaster Environment Centre are, or who indeed Energy Lancaster are. I think we need to put that right.
I agree, because certainly one of the big attractor points for me to come to Lancaster was the fact that the Lancaster Environment Centre is here. I mean, it has an absolute fantastic reputation for being able to foster interdisciplinarity and to do so consistently over time. So I think that's a really good starting point.
And there's a good number of members, as you've already said, of Energy Lancaster and the Environment Centre who are members of the Pentland Centre as well. Alona, putting you on the spot, I know you're not in charge of the whole of the Lancaster Environment Centre.
Thankfully not.
but welcome back with the question of who are the Lancaster Environment Centre and what kind of work goes on there?
Everything seems to go on there. So it's I think there's about 85, 90 members of permanent academic staff, and they range from earth scientists through to human geographers and critical social scientists. So there's people who specialise in volcanology, in plant science and photosynthesis, in soil science, in policy, in cultural geography, it's just immense. I can't even remember all the different topics there are there when I'm on the spot. And then we also we'll have research groups where we're clustered around different kind of research avenues, if you like, but then we'll also have cross-cutting topics. So that there'll be people who work on kind of tropical environments, which might be kind of, there's people work on forests, but also coral reefs. I think there's an agri-food kind of theme, or people who come together across disciplines in that space. So it is really diverse, and for me it makes it a really exciting place to be, because there's so much different stuff going on, and that also kind of means that people can be quite different, which is great to have in a workplace. And then I think in the building, maybe there's about 400 people. We're the Lancaster Environment Centre in the university, but we share the building with the UK Centre of Ecology and Hydrology, who are another bunch of environmental professionals. And then there's a whole raft of PhD students and postgraduates, and then a really strong undergraduate community as well, who might be doing degrees in human geography, physical geography, environmental science, earth and environmental science, ecology and conservation. So it's a really diverse, big department.
And indeed, we have some really nice connections there. So Tim Lamont and I have been working on looking at what corporations say about restoration and how they're undertaking that, and the finding of that, we'll have them on a podcast later on, is they're not saying much, but there's some really good ecological principles that they could apply, and we're working with groups of companies to try to help them do that. But also the Pentland Centre has a nice connection across Christina Hicks' work, and we're looking at how we can help her identify the fish meal factories in West Africa and who owns them, and what kind of work they're doing there. So it's a really nice, for us, it's a really nice touchdown point. But of course, the other unit within there is Energy Lancaster, which you are the boss and the lead and all things wonderful about. So what happens under Energy Lancaster banner?
So Energy Lancaster is a university research centre. So it recruits members from across departments, across the university, with an energy focus. So there'll be people like yourself in it, Jan, people like me, environmental scientists, but there's someone in the Faculty of Health and Medicine that looks at effects of heat in the home on health. There's people in computing who look at monitoring of energy use and how that fits with practice. There'll be people in engineering who look at technical developments of systems. There's people in chemistry who are doing research into batteries of different variants. There's people in physics who look at do work on quantum dots, which is related to PV panels. And there's also some chemists who look at a different kind of form of PV panels. So from the very, very kind of blue skies, fundamental research through to more applied, and everything between, one project at the moment is with preparing us with Katie Mason in the management school, looking at, it's actually on agrivoltaics and looking at markets and how that might values and so forth.
You've already included a few examples there, but are there lots of overlap then with the work that goes on in the Pentland Centre and the work that goes on in Energy Lancaster?
I think I'd say synergies rather than overlaps, because it's a way to bring together two different communities, and increasingly what we need to do is work on these, all the hard problems are cross-disciplinary problems. So I think both centres do well at bringing people together with two different focus, but that area of commonality I think is a really fertile space for collaboration and advancement.
I'd absolutely agree with that. And for our listeners, we've had Katie Mason on an earlier podcast as well. And so her way of thinking about markets and framing is really important for sustainability in business, but also for energy as well. And so we've got a good team of people that with their own deep specialities, but when you bring them together around a problem space, then you can actually investigate a lot more of those elements that we were talking about in the main podcast from Alona on how things need to come together in order to enable a sustainable change in our energy systems.
So my suggestion right at the very start of the previous podcast, suggesting that all the research centres around the university are just fighting each other and there's constant bickering like with siblings or anything, isn't necessarily true.
Not at all true, I'm pleased to say.
Not unless there's one biscuit left.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It doesn't matter what research centre you're from, you definitely want that last biscuit. Just then looking to the future with Energy Lancaster, do you see any particular areas where the centre is going to be focusing on in the coming years?
Yeah, I think the challenge ahead to help us get to net zero as quickly as possible is around, I think the technology is there. I think technologically we could do it. But the challenge is around policy, social, environment. And what I think we're really good at Lancaster, because we're a relatively small university, is developing those cross-disciplinary, so we can bring people with those expertise and people with technological expertise as the underpinning to try and help us get to net zero and as quickly as possible. But it's building those. I think kind of historically the energy challenge might have been seen as a technical challenge, an engineering, a physics, a chemistry challenge. But now I think we really need to integrate across disciplines, and that's the focus, and that's the point of the university research centres, is to bring people across discipline. But that's where we need to go. We need to tackle those interdependencies. It's tricky, but that's going to be the focus.
Well, that's brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us for these couple of episodes, Alona. It's been really good having you here, learning all about solar parks, Energy Lancaster, biodiversity, floating solar plants, just about anything there. It was been wonderful. Thank you. Next time, we're going to be joined by Matt Healy, who is a PhD researcher here in Lancaster University Management School. He's got a background in outdoor education. He has a real interest in our personal connections with nature. Until then, if you have any questions for us you'd like to ask, please do email us pentlandcentre@lancaster.ac.uk. But otherwise, until next time, I'm Paul Turner.
And I'm Professor Jan Bevington.